This is the Mod Pod, brought to you by Modality, helping businesses optimize their Microsoft technologies everywhere.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Mod Pod. This is our anniversary edition. We've been going one full year, and I promise you Pete's voice hasn't changed this year. I'm Chris Burns, I'm one of the senior consultants, and I'm taking the reins this week. Pete joins us on as a guest, and we also have Jack Fisher joining us. Say hello, Jack.
Hi there.
And we have Georgina Rollins joining us this week as well.
Hello, everyone.
So we've got two subjects for you today. First one is going to be introduced by Jack. Let's start with option one.
Okay, so first subject I'd like to bring to the table is the relationship between productivity, Microsoft Viva, and culture within a business.
Okay. So I find this one an interesting one. Viva being a product that's been brought out to, in essence, improve productivity, right? There's multiple aspects of Viva, the learning, the ability to get teams up to speed as quickly as possible. I guess my question to the panel is it working? Are customers looking at it?
Are they looking at it? It's weird being on this side of the fence. Right. Are they looking at it? Yeah, I think everybody has a sort of an awareness that Viva is out there, and they've got this high level sort of concept that it's around, the employee experience. I think there are a tiny portion of customers who have actually properly delved into it. So I think we're really early days. I mean, we've done a couple of obviously podcasts and webinars and things over recent months trying to address that. But I still think that we are in the very early days of trying to get across the message that actually we're probably at the beginning of quite a big shift in how people consume information within their organizations. So is it working? Probably not yet.
No, yeah.
But we're on the right track.
Yeah, I think for me, I think when we have conversations about Viva, it's always, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why do we need it? Right. And more so, why do we need to pay for it? And I think that's the challenge with Viva at the moment, is it's got the right idea of saying, yep, we're focusing on employees. We're focusing on getting them up to speed. I mean, we haven't approached the culture section yet, but in terms of productivity, I think it's got the right idea. It's the question, well, as I had with a customer last week, what's it worth? Why do we need to pay for it at the moment? And I think it's an interesting one. I think the product is good. I'm just interested to see how many customers pick it up and use it, because there's many good products that's been out there that it's been a great product, but if it hasn't been marketed properly or been sold properly, they tend to die. I mean, I don't know, George, I know you work with Microsoft. What's their general feel?
Yeah, Microsoft has heavily been pushing Microsoft Viva, and the reason being, I think, has been very much around the pandemic and employees being thrown working from home. So it's about a culture thing. It's about making sure that employees are looked after. They understand overall how their employees are working. Are they working, really late, long hours? All of those kind of things are really important intel on your workforce. We all know, even within the recruitment market at the moment, it's tough out there. So you want to make sure your employees are happy. And with Microsoft Viva, I think this is what Microsoft are trying to do. They're trying to help organizations more with the cultural side of things. So, the topic of what we're talking about today is really quite all together with productivity, with Viva. And making sure that you've got a good culture within your organization. I do think it's mainly the big enterprises that are looking at this, that have more money to do stuff like this. So I'd be really interested to see how this can kind of resonate more kind of within the mid-market more. Yeah. But customers, from what I've seen, certainly are investigating it. We've been doing quite a lot of Viva workshops with customers, really trying for them to understand what they can actually get out of Viva, because Microsoft certainly are talking to them about it.
Cool. So I'm going to throw a question back, and I'm going to wait for Jack and Chris's heads to synchronously slam on the desk as I mention it. But one of the things that I harp on about time and time again in the tech days and things like that is, you know, the pillars of what makes an ideal team for us. And two of those areas are about development of the team, so constantly learning, and I want a team that's actually properly rested.
Yeah.
So they have the brain power to fire at 110 miles an hour when they are working, but I don't want them to work at 110 miles an hour for 8 days a week. So two of those angles, the sort of the development, the learning piece of the rested part, I think are the areas that fit very nicely into the link between the culture that your business has and Viva. So if you look at the development piece, learning, yeah, I get it. It hooks into, you know, LMS platforms. It'll hook into Microsoft Learn. You know, you can present your learning to your user base. I think that will be an interesting one to see how that one pans out. The one that I find culturally important is actually the topics bit, because more and more you see organizations, you know, and we're not like we're like everybody else in the sense that we have acronyms coming out of our backsides. We have different projects and products and this and that and the other. So the ability to just read a sentence, not understand what something is, hover over it and get instant answer is massively important. And I think when you apply that to, you know, what's Viva, what's Azure, what's the pricing table for so-and-so, what's this, what's that, having the ability to surface that information almost in line with what you're doing is how we will change to learning. I think traditional learning methods will subside over time. Yes, you're still going to have the right place to go and take 2 days out to learn something completely new or whatever it may be, but the general day-to-day learning piece, that piece, topics, I think fits really, really well. You take the rested part, you know, that's insights all over, right? George, I can see you're working immense hours. That's not normal. Boom, off we go.
See, what I find interesting about
yeah, I know.
See, what I find interesting about the insights one is the cynics upon when I've spoken to customers, you've almost got a cynical look at it, right? Because it was designed to be health and welfare for your employees, right? Well, how much time are you taking? I'm looking at one of my calendars now, and I know that most of the, all of the focus time that's been put into my calendar has been put in from Insights. So it's giving me that block of time every day to be able to focus and do my job. And I think it's a great, what I found very interesting with one of the workshops I did was, is that a case of a manager spying on you? And I don't know whether that's over.
Please, miss. Please.
Go ahead.
That is a cultural trust.
Exactly.
100%.
So
yeah, that's a cultural thing.
Isn't it then important then? So we're saying productivity, Viva, and culture. What order do they come in? Because I guess if you've got the right culture from a business from the top down, they're then interested in using Viva, it will make you more productive. That's great. What if you're coming from the other angle where your culture's not right? Well, let's chuck in Viva and do that. I don't know. That's another question. But
It is, isn't it? Because it's, can Viva change or help change your culture?
No. Culture's 100% first for me. It's like, you remember the days of good old, you know, when presents first came into Link.
Oh, I didn't know you were that old, George.
Trust me, I am, mate. You know, when it first came into Link, everyone was like, my manager's spying on me. I've got to be by my desk. You know, you'd read something, you'd go like this with your mouse just to make sure that your presence.
There was a
someone said
whole
if you
industry
put-
out there. There's this software application, wasn't there, that moved your
Yeah,
mouse
well,
just.
Apparently, if you put
Yeah.
if you put an old analog clock with a second hand under your mouse, not that I do this, Pete. It ticks round and it sees the second hand and just nudges your mouse.
What I love, you know, I mean, so we've had this question has been going on for ages, and it's obviously, especially when you get into the likes of, you know, in Germany with the Workers' Council about not making, you know, protecting the, you know, the rights of the workers, etc. One thing I've always found fascinating as in a management role is that anybody thinks that I have the time or inclination to check on their presence status. I mean, it's like, really? If you're not there, you're not there. I'll do something different and catch you later. I'm not looking. So again, I would say,
It's a
and
trust
again,
thing.
it's not so much on the German side because that's a, you know,
Yeah.
a big sort of machine that works with the user base. But I think there is, it's got to be culture first, 100% of the time.
But you say that, Pete, right? Obviously, you're one of the managers within the team here, right? But the reason you don't do that is because there is the culture is not to spy on your employees, right?
That's because
Because
I'll whoop your tush if you don't do it right, eh?
But I think I've seen, you know, you read on Reddit, there's the malicious compliance. I don't know if you've ever seen that subreddit, right? And you see people there where managers said, well, you weren't sat on, it didn't go green at 9 o'clock. What were you doing? Right.
Wow.
And it's that very much. So I do believe there is that negative culture out there.
Yeah,
I think
you're
we
probably
just,
right.
yeah,
mean,
I think,
you know, that I think if somebody is watching whether or not a presence status goes green, they've got major trust issues, but also their organisation should be looking at them to go, are you really efficient and effective at what you're doing? Because that really doesn't sound like a great use of time.
yeah.
You've got to have
That just
other
makes it
metrics
sits
of-
like you're looking at little dots to change colour.
Yeah, surely you've got another way to measure whether you're successful
Yeah.
as a business and whether your outcomes are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I would love to know those kind of managers that have that culture. If you ask them the question, what do you want out of your employees? What do you measure, their input or their output? And I'd love to know how they answer that question. Probably both. So I think, yeah, something like Viva, if the culture of that organization is that, where you are monitored at 9 o'clock to make sure your presence goes green, I think if Viva has got a heck of a challenge, because that insights module into it, which was designed to be helpful and trying to get, is instantly going to be seen as what
It is, but it is very much designed from the ground up to be de-identified information, which I think you said earlier, Chris. Large organisations, this is great for, because you've got huge teams. You can't pick out individuals from the information that it surfaces. If you've got pretty small teams, then it's going to probably be quite obvious who's the one doing that and who's the one doing that, because it doesn't actually give you the names of anyone or that. It just gives you trends. Which is why I think, yeah, it will apply to the larger ones. I think there's a default size limit, like you have to have a team of over 10 minimum, and you can change that to be more, but it's a minimum of 10. So
yeah, that's
it will
because
very much
Microsoft
depend on the
charges
size.
like $2 per user, but you need 1,000 users to use it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we run the risk of making it sound like Viva's not a great tool. I actually do think it is. It's one of those things, though, isn't it? You talk about the culture of the company. There's a lot of good things that have been created in all sectors across the years that have been used for bad purposes.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, it comes down to who wants to do what with it. I think there is fortunately, a really, really big shift towards making the user experience and the digital experience a really positive thing for people working in, you know, within organizations. So, you know, I guess the sort of the link for me is, if you've got the right culture, then putting something like Viva into your organization can result in really strong productivity gains.
Absolutely.
but you've got to join it all together, and that's got to start from culture up top, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these are from there's 4 columns of Viva, isn't there? There's the Viva Connections is the one I'm thinking at the moment, right? If as a techie, you're going to be asking, right, what's it going to do for me? I think the Viva Connections one of almost a default intranet. I've worked for many companies that have had it and said all the information you need on the intranet. By the time you get to it, your employee number 998 since it's been built, it's been up and running for the last 2 years. It's actually not fresh. It hasn't got the right information in, and it doesn't serve its purpose. So I think for a techie person saying, what does Viva bring? I think Connections is actually a pretty good one as well, because it's that live, updated, fresh information for doing nothing, right? Because normally internet development is always going to IT to go and develop a website.
But there's another point that hooks into this, and Jack and I were talking about this the other day, is the quality for Connections, the quality of the information that you've got already needs to be good.
Yeah.
Which means if you're talking about creating a good culture for your organization, you have to invest in people, and that's either financially or with time. And so you have to invest the time to make sure that what's being surfaced out of Viva is good quality information, so you don't end up in that situation where you're going, well, somebody told me this document was in here, I can't get it.
And that's the same with topics as well, because that's all built off what your SharePoint and that experience.
It does need that resource to make it work, doesn't it? I think.
But isn't this
I think that's the key. So you've got to have that investment as an organisation when it comes to Viva to make sure that everything that is being faced to your employees is fresh, is up to date, is what you want to be transmitting.
Isn't the fact that Viva's sitting on top of the, let's call it the 365 platform in itself, right? It's pulling information from, if you as an organization are saving information within SharePoint or within the 365, if your day-to-day interactions is always in that 365 platform, then surely the data that you're going to get out there is always going to be fresh. Because if you're working with Microsoft Lists or you're working with calendars, right, this is what this intranet's pulling from. Or what we were talking about before, Jack, about shifts, right, signing in, signing out, using some of the apps, which is going to be a nice handoff to our next conversation, by the way. But if your whole, it sounds terrible to say it this way, but if your whole world is within that 365 environment, Viva is going to be, by the very nature, is going to be bubbling and surfing that information up anyway. Because by default, your information's in there, unless your company is just creating rubbish data, right?
I think the thing is that's if are people being encouraged to save it in SharePoint, put things in SharePoint, or are they just chucking stuff on a file server somewhere? Because you've got to have that information in there to make Viva come alive or bubble, as you said.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and maybe that's what Microsoft are looking to sell this product for, because it allows you to say, if you do this the way we intend you to do it, Viva comes alive then.
Yeah.
And are we going with the term bubble? Is that
it sounds like
the new technical term? Is it?
Viva is bubbling away.
Bubbling. I don't know how do you when you surface something? I just imagine like just that water, like or lava, right? It's hot stuff.